You never think your life is going to end in a school gymnasium full of folding chairs and juice boxes. But mine did. It wasn't the day I found out she was cheating. That came earlier, quiet, bitter, like the first sharp wind before a storm. It came in the form of a forgotten iPad, synced to her phone, with messages lighting up during our son's reading time. I remember it clear as day, her name at the top, followed by a message from some idiot saved as gym coach. I opened it. I read every word. And then I read them again. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was brazen, graphic, filthy. The kind of filth you can't scrub off with therapy. Not just to one guy, but two, maybe more. She had names for them. Secret emojis. Times they'd met. Which Starbucks bathrooms were clean enough. What she told me to get out of the house. How she called me the walking wallet when she thought she was being clever. And the worst part? She joked about the PDA. She actually laughed about the other moms calling her classy while she was screwing someone behind the elementary school during drop-off. That's when the switch flipped. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about what she stood for. How she used our son's school, his friends, the community that trusted her, as her personal alibi. And I wasn't going to let her walk away from that untouched. She used the PDA like camouflage. So I decided to set it on fire. Our school has this obnoxiously cheery Parent Connect program run by the PDA. She was on every damn committee. Safety patrol coordinator, snack duty organizer, even the person who made those colorful charts for reading progress. The other moms adored her. The dads flirted. Teachers praised her like she was Mother Teresa in yoga pants. I was the quiet one. The guy who showed up to school events, took the photos, held the juice boxes, smiled politely. They never saw me coming. First, I went through 6 months of her messages. I screenshotted everything, categorized by date, location, and affair partner. I printed them out in crisp black and white. Names blurred? Nope. Real names. With contact numbers. I didn't need to write a single word. Her words were enough. Then came the envelopes. I used heavy, thick paper stock, something that felt important. Professional. Each one was hand-labeled. I knew the type of people on the PDA, control freaks. Worrywarts. Type A neurotics who panic over gluten-free snacks in school zone traffic. I knew they wouldn't ignore an envelope like that. Especially not from a fellow parent. I hand-delivered some. Mailed others. Made sure every parent on the board got one. Inside, her messages, printed neatly and stapled. Highlighted sections where she coordinated hookups during school hours, where she joked about which teachers were too dumb to notice, where she bragged about using the school's back gate to sneak out unnoticed. I didn't include a return address, but I included one sentence at the bottom of every packet. Ask her what she was doing during safety week. I waited. It didn't take long. The first signs came in whispers. She came home from a PDA planning session looking rattled, saying, "Everyone's acting weird." I nodded, probably stressed about the bake sale. Then came the text messages. "Do you know anything about this?" she asked, forwarding a blurry photo of one of the printed pages. I stared at it. She hadn't realized yet that I was the one who sent them. That made me smile. A few days later, she was removed from a committee. No explanation. She brushed it off. It's probably politics. But her eyes weren't steady. By the next week, the group chat of PDA moms, which used to light up her phone all day, went dead. Silent. The tipping point was the school carnival. She showed up with her perfect mom face on, wearing that obnoxious sun hat and a fake smile. I watched from the parking lot. I could see it in the way people looked at her. Or rather, the way they didn't. Moms avoided her. Dads leaned in to whisper when she passed. One teacher refused her offer to help set up, saying, "We've got it covered." But the real carnage came from the kids. Our son came home that night and asked, "Dad, what's a mommy thought?" I froze. He said one of the other boys called his mom that his friend's mom told him to stay away from people like her. That was when I knew it worked. And I wasn't done. After the carnival, the change in her was slow, like watching paint peel off a wall you used to admire. She still pretended for a while. Still packed lunches with smiley face notes. Still did her hair before pickup. But something in her movements was different. Less confident. Mechanical. Like she was performing for an audience that had long left the theater. And I just watched. I stopped talking much. Didn't need to. Every silence between us was a loaded gun she couldn't stop staring at. She began checking her phone constantly, waiting for messages that never came. Her group chats were ghost towns. Her Facebook feed went from selfies and school events to shared inspirational quotes and desperate, "Life isn't always perfect" captions. Her Instagram was worse. Post after post of our son, over-edited to mask the isolation behind the lens. The guilt wasn't killing her. The shame was. Because I made sure her spotlight turned into a microscope. One day, I casually asked if she'd heard from Megan lately. Megan was her best friend, the kind of woman who lived on gossip and rose gold tumblers. Always the first to like her posts. Always gushing about power couples and boss moms. "She's been busy, I think," she mumbled. "Busy? Huh? That's funny. Because I had coffee with Megan 2 days earlier." Yeah, that was part of the next layer of my plan, sowing doubt in her inner circle. You see, people don't need to know the truth. They just need to feel that someone knows more than they're saying. So I started talking to a few of the PDA moms in subtle, perfect ways. Not accusations. Just questions. "Hey, did my wife seem okay to you lately? I don't know. She's been out a lot during the day. You ever notice how often she leaves right after drop-off? She mentioned something about meeting a gym friend during lunch breaks. Just wanted to make sure she wasn't overworking herself." I let those seeds fall gently, but I knew where they'd grow. Because in suburban circles, perception is reality. And whispers, they're the currency of exile. 2 weeks after the scandal broke, she got uninvited to the PDA conference trip she helped organize. That one stung. She cried in the bathroom for over an hour. I didn't go in. I didn't say a word. Just turned the volume up on the TV, pretending not to hear the sounds of a woman realizing her crown had been ripped off in silence. And the best part? She still didn't know it was me. That gave me room to escalate. I found an old group photo, PDA moms, teachers, and my wife front and center with her perfect goddamn smile. I made a fake school-wide community reminder flyer with that photo. On it, I wrote, "Always remember who's around your children. Some people smile in the daylight and sin in the shadows." Underneath, I listed anonymous excerpts from her messages, one-liners only, vague but dripping with implication. "Drop the kid off. Free until 11 if you're fast. I'll wear the yoga pants you like. Just park behind the rec center. My husband's at a meeting. You've got an hour before I have to pretend again." No names. No accusations. But anyone who'd seen the real scandal already knew who it was. I printed 50 copies. Left them on windshields at pickup. A few in teachers' mailboxes. One inside the PDA lounge. By Monday, it was the only thing anyone was talking about. Then came the final twist of the knife, a concerned parent complaint to the school board. I wrote it anonymously, of course. I cited moral concerns, use of school grounds for inappropriate behavior, and parental conduct unbecoming of a PTA leader. I never said her name. I didn't have to. The principal held a closed-door meeting with her. She came home pale and shaking, eyes bloodshot. She tried to tell me about it. I just nodded and said, "Must be some misunderstanding." She sat on the bed that night and asked, "Do you think people hate me?" I looked her dead in the eye. "I think they're starting to see you clearly." She stopped going to the school after that. Drop-offs became my job. Pickups too. The other moms started chatting with me more. One even brought me coffee. Another called me a good dad for stepping up. She heard all of it. And she hated it. Her perfect image wasn't just cracked. It was shattered, burned, and buried under the weight of her own words. And I didn't lift a single finger. I just amplified what she already was. A fraud. A liar. A joke in yoga pants. And I still wasn't done. After the flyer incident, she barely left the house. She claimed it was a stomach bug. That was her go-to excuse now, invisible sicknesses. She couldn't risk going to a doctor and proving she was fine. She just had to act fragile enough to stay under the radar. That was the first sign she wasn't just embarrassed. She was afraid. Of who saw what? Of who believed what? Of the silence from the very people who used to boost her up. And while she curled up on the couch in sweatpants, binge-watching fake crime dramas and pretending not to notice our son's questions, I went to work on phase 3. The lovers. The men she risked our family for. The ones she thought were her little secret indulgences. They didn't know what kind of wreckage they left behind, because she painted me as some boring, oblivious cash cow with no spine and even less brains. That was her first mistake. One of them was easy. Greg, gym coach. Real subtle. A 33-year-old divorced wannabe bodybuilder who ran boot camp sessions out of a repurposed garage. I knew where he trained. He posted his sessions on Instagram every morning. Tagged himself like a teenager desperate for validation. I walked in mid-session one Tuesday, just a quiet guy in gym shorts. He didn't recognize me. I let him finish his set, waited until the others left, and approached casually. You, Greg? Yeah, what's up, man? You still F***ing my wife. He laughed, like it was a joke, until he saw my face. Then came the denial. I didn't know she was married. I cut him off. You called me Captain Wallet in one of your messages. She said I was too stupid to figure it out. His face dropped. Look, man, I swear. Relax, I said, calm as a monk. I'm not here to fight you. He blinked, confused. I'm here to let you know she's been sleeping with someone else. While she was with you. Some guy named Ethan. Works in IT. She calls him Server Daddy. I thought you deserved to know. I handed him a printed transcript, her words, describing how Greg was fun but kinda dumb, and how she fake moaned to get it over faster. He read it, and something in him shattered. Why would you show me this? He asked. Because you're not her victim. You're her pawn. Like I was. I left him standing there, holding the papers like they were written in blood. Ethan was next. I found him through a reverse image search of his profile pic from her chats. She'd saved a selfie he sent, shirtless, with a Red Sox cap and a computer monitor in the background. Amateur hour. Turns out Ethan had a girlfriend. Public Instagram. Happy 3 years, babe kinda posts. Her name was Rachel. I messaged her anonymously. Attached, 3 screenshots. No commentary. She responded within 10 minutes. Who are you? I didn't answer. But I watched Ethan's profile disappear the next day. And I waited. 2 days later, my wife stormed into the room, eyes wild. Why is Greg messaging me that I'm a lying whore? I shrugged. I don't know. Maybe because you are. She slapped me. It didn't even sting. I looked her dead in the eye and said, You built this mess. I'm just turning the lights on. That's when she started cracking. Truly cracking. She stopped brushing her hair. Stopped talking to our son unless she had to. Started muttering to herself. Half sentences, broken thoughts. I caught her sitting at the kitchen table one night, just staring at her phone, opening the same old group chat, scrolling up, hoping something new would appear. Something that told her this wasn't real. But it was. She went to the school one last time, uninvited, to try and clear the air. I watched from my car as she approached a few of the other moms. One physically stepped back. Another folded her arms and walked away. One didn't even look up from her phone. She stood there for a while, alone, then turned back to her car, sunglasses on, shaking hands, fumbling for keys. My son was in the back seat. He saw it too. Why don't the other moms like mommy anymore? I let that silence hang between us. I don't know, bud. Maybe they just finally see who she is. And here's the delicious part. She still didn't know I was the architect. To her, it looked like everything just collapsed. Random. Coincidental. But that's the beauty of real revenge. It doesn't need a smoking gun. It just needs silence and strategy. And I wasn't finished yet. Because next, I was going to take the one thing she had left, the illusion of family, and crush it in front of her. She always used to say our son was her light. Every Instagram caption, every conversation with strangers. He saved me. She'd gush, hand on heart, like she was the only mother who ever gave birth. I used to believe her. But now I knew better. He wasn't her light. He was her shield. The one innocent thing she kept waving around so people wouldn't look too hard at her shadows. Her stories, her smiles, her perfect image, all built on the back of doing it for the kids. But she never considered what would happen if the kids started looking back. So I gave him space to see. It started with simple truths. Nothing graphic. No rage. Just facts. Little moments. One night, after brushing his teeth, he asked why mommy was always sad now. I knelt down, looked him right in the eye, and said, Because sometimes when people hurt others, they get found out. He furrowed his brow. Like lying? I nodded. Worse than lying. He didn't press further that night. But the next week, he asked if mommy and I were going to live in different houses. That's when I planted the seed. Maybe. But not because I want to. Because mommy made some choices that hurt our family. I saw the gears turning. He wasn't dumb. Kids never are. They don't need details. They just need consistency. And I gave it to him. While she gave him nothing but silence and crocodile tears. The next step came when I picked him up from school and handed him a permission slip for the annual Mothers and Muffins breakfast. He frowned at it. I asked, What's wrong? He said, Some of the kids said I shouldn't bring mommy. I raised an eyebrow. Why? He looked at me with that innocent confusion only a kid can wear. Because their mom said she's not a good mom. I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. I just said, you can bring whoever you want, but you want me to come instead? He nodded slowly. That was the beginning of the replacement. I started showing up more. Not just to be present, but to contrast. To become the figure he looked at when he thought of safety, trust, consistency. I taught him how to ride his bike in the empty school lot while she slept in. We did pizza Fridays, just us two. Movie nights turned into conversations, and I made damn sure he felt heard, every second. Meanwhile, she tried harder. But it reeked of desperation. Overcompensating with gifts. Fake baby talk. Long, awkward hugs he didn't ask for. He started pulling away. Once, I walked into the room to find her on the couch beside him, trying to get him to take a selfie for Mommy's story. He said no. She pushed. He turned to me and said, "Do I have to?" I said, "No, but you don't owe anyone a photo." That moment, she felt it, like a ghost walking through her soul. She tried to talk to me about it that night. We can't let him turn against me. He's a kid. He doesn't understand. I just stared at her. You're right, I said. He doesn't understand how you chose to sneak around behind the people who loved you most. But he feels it. And he's starting to see who's been there for him. Every day. Without a mask. She went quiet. Then she said something I'll never forget. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I leaned in, calm, expressionless. None of them ever do. But you kept going, didn't you? Even when you knew. And now, you've made your own son ashamed of you, not because I told him to be, but because he saw you. The final nail came on Mother's and Muffins Day. She showed up anyway, dressed up like nothing had changed. That fake bright pink lipstick, the one she thought made her look young and fun. She walked into the cafeteria, saw our son sitting at the table, with me, laughing, eating muffins. She froze. He saw her, gave a polite wave. Nothing more. Didn't run up. Didn't say, "Mommy." Didn't beg her to sit. She came over anyway, smiling that desperate smile. "Hey, sweetie, I thought we were going to do this together." He looked up at her. Innocent. Calm. "I thought you didn't come to stuff anymore." She blinked, then looked at me, then back at him. And for the first time in this entire unraveling mess, she had no words. Just silence. The kind that breaks bones in the dark. After that, she stopped fighting. Stopped asking about the PDA. Stopped smiling for the camera. She started sleeping on the couch without being asked. Like she knew the eviction notice wasn't coming from a judge, but from the boy who once called her a superhero and now wouldn't even hold her hand in public. And I hadn't lifted a finger. She did this. I just opened the blinds. After the school cafeteria incident, something in her just dimmed. She still lived in the house, technically, but she moved through it like a squatter who knew eviction was coming. She avoided eye contact. Ate alone. Kept to corners. No more selfies. No more fake laughter. She started wearing those big oversized hoodies, the ones she used to mock other moms for. The kind of clothes you wear when you don't want to be perceived. And that's when I started constructing the illusion. Because see, revenge isn't about yelling, or throwing plates, or smashing her phone. Real revenge? It's making her feel irrelevant while you live better without her. It started subtle. I got in shape. Not gym bro obnoxious. Just clean, sharp, focused. She noticed when I started wearing fitted clothes again. She noticed when I shaved before school events. When I started brushing our son's hair more carefully than she ever did. Then came the real move. Her name was Nadia. She was the older sister of one of the other school kids, mid-30s, divorced, smart as hell. No drama. No games. Worked in finance. Quiet confidence. The type of woman who didn't need the spotlight to own the room. We met during a pickup, exchanged a few casual smiles, and I made sure it grew slowly, naturally, without spectacle. Our first public interaction was at a weekend art fair. Nadia and I stood by a mural display with our kids eating cotton candy. We didn't hold hands. We didn't kiss. But we laughed. God, we laughed. And I saw my wife standing 20 feet away, watching from behind a coffee stand. Her sunglasses didn't hide the way her mouth twitched, the way her shoulders curled inward. That night, she didn't speak a word. She went to bed without saying good night to our son. I didn't need to post anything on social media. I let others do it. Nadia was friends with a few PDA moms. One of them snapped a photo of us at a community run, both of us standing with our kids, water bottles in hand, smiling. It showed up in a Facebook album titled Healthy Dads of Willow Creek, smiling face with hard eyes. Guess who wasn't in the comments section anymore? Guess who wasn't tagged anymore? Her presence online faded like a deleted tab, and mine flourished. We hosted a small game night at our place. Close friends, a couple parents, nothing huge. Nadia came, brought her son, helped clean, helped cook, laughed with our son like she'd known him forever. And my ex? She was upstairs, pretending to sleep. She heard the laughter, heard the conversations, heard the music and clinking glasses. But no one invited her down. No one even asked about her. She didn't exist anymore. The final blow was so simple, it felt poetic. I submitted a short story to the local newsletter. Just a slice of life column titled Second Chances. It was fiction, technically, but anyone who'd followed the gossip around our neighborhood knew it was about me. About a man who rebuilt his life after betrayal. About finding love in unexpected places. About watching his son flourish under honesty and warmth. It didn't name names. Didn't need to. People loved it. A teacher messaged me. Your story gave me chills. So happy for you. One of the PTA moms sent a voice note. She really screwed up, huh? I played it on speaker one night, knowing she was just down the hall. She didn't come out. But the next morning, her suitcase was by the door. She left quietly. No goodbye to our son. No, I'll fight for us. Just a silent exit from the house she used to rule. I watched from the front window as she loaded her car. No makeup, no earrings, no forced smile. She looked like someone who'd just been erased. And that's exactly what I wanted. Because she didn't just lose me. She lost the version of herself that only existed through lies. And all I had to do was step back and let her watch. After she left, the silence in the house didn't feel cold. It felt earned, peaceful, like finally walking barefoot on polished wood after years of glass shards and pretending they were petals. She didn't say where she was going. Some temporary apartment. She didn't ask for custody, not even part-time. That part surprised me. I half expected a messy legal game, but no. She knew. She saw it in her son's eyes the night before she packed up. She wasn't mommy anymore. Just the woman who used to be his mother. And I didn't need to push him. Didn't need to poison him with words. I just let her own absence do all the work. I made one move the next week that turned everything in my favor. I joined the PDA. The same council she used to lead with her fake-ass smiles and power-walking energy. The same people who used to fall over themselves to be around her. I showed up to the next meeting wearing a clean Oxford shirt, tucked in, with a binder under my arm and zero pretension. Just a dad who cared. I didn't bring her up. Didn't even hint at it. And because I didn't, they did. Glad to see you getting involved more, one of the older moms said. We've needed a real voice of reason, said another. A teacher walked up to me after the meeting and said, I always felt like she was performing. You're more grounded. People noticed that. Yeah, they noticed. Because people remember the aftermath, not the noise. They remember who stood steady when the storm hit. One afternoon, about a month after she left, I took our son to a school family picnic. Nothing big, blankets, juice boxes, some music, light games. But she showed up. Yeah, she showed up. Didn't talk to anyone. Just stood off to the side in a long coat and oversized sunglasses, pretending like she was just passing through. People noticed. No one approached. I kept playing frisbee with our son, laughing, letting him fall over himself giggling. She tried to call out to him, a soft, hey baby. He turned, paused, then walked behind me and whispered, can we go somewhere else? I don't want to be near her. I nodded, and that's when it hit her. She'd lost him not just legally or physically. She'd lost him emotionally. No court order, no custody battle, just choices. Her choices, and the clarity of a child who knew who really showed up when it counted. Later that week, I got an email. It was from the school's community outreach coordinator. They were inviting me to speak at a local Fathers in Action panel, an initiative to highlight strong male figures in single-parent homes. They wanted me to share how I handled the transition, how I maintained stability for my kid. I read the email 3 times, smiled, then said yes. You know what she saw a week later? A photo of me on the school's official Facebook page, on a panel with other respected dads. Our son sitting in the front row, grinning like he just watched Superman land. Caption, celebrating real fatherhood, resilience, leadership, love. Her friends saw it. Her former PDA group saw it. Her family saw it. Hell, even her old affair partner Greg liked the post. You can't write that kind of irony. She tried to text me that night. You're really milking this, huh? I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. No. I'm just showing the world what real looks like. You built your story on lies. I'm building mine on what's left, and guess what? People prefer it. She left it on read. 2 days later, she posted a grainy selfie with a caption about healing energy. Not a single comment. This wasn't about cruelty. Not anymore. This was justice. Quiet, consistent justice. She burned down a home. I turned the ashes into something better. And now? I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. While she faded from relevance, one ignored message and unliked post at a time. And the best part? There's still more to come. Because I've got one last checkmate to play, and it involves her family. After the school panel and the photo that made its way across every mom group in the district, I could feel something shift. She went from quiet to calculating. From embarrassed to bitter. The first sign? A new social media post, her face, all filtered and puffy-eyed, with a long-winded caption. Some people weaponize children. Some people wear a mask of the perfect parent. Don't believe everything you see online. Healing through truth. It didn't name me. Didn't need to. People knew. The comment section was dead silent. Except for one poor soul who replied, "You okay, hun?" She didn't even answer. But that was her first jab. Trying to make it seem like I was the manipulator. The next move? She tried to crawl back into her family's good graces, the same people who'd gone radio silent ever since word spread through our town like wildfire. Her parents used to adore me. Her sister once told me I was the only man in the family who doesn't flake. So she went to them. Started calling more. Started crying harder. Feeding them her side of the story, that I turned our son against her. That I started dating too fast. That I was spreading rumors. But here's the problem with trying to rewrite history. I kept receipts. Her mom texted me one night. She says you're alienating her from your son. That she's not allowed to see him. Please tell me this isn't true. I responded with a picture. It was from the school picnic. Our son, hands behind his back, standing behind me as she tried to talk to him, his expression blank, closed off, uncomfortable. I followed it up with a simple text. He made that choice. Not me. Ask her why. I didn't need to say more. Her parents knew she had a history of deflecting blame. This wasn't her first stunt, just the first one that went nuclear. Her sister messaged me privately a day later. She's spiraling. And lying again. Just a heads up, she said she's planning something big. I wouldn't trust her. Bingo. I knew it was coming. She couldn't attack me publicly, not without getting exposed again. So she tried something sneakier. I got a call from the school counselor 2 weeks later. Soft voice. Careful tone. Hi. We just wanted to check in. Your son mentioned something during a class discussion. Said you and his mom argue a lot. That she's scared sometimes. I didn't blink. Oh, really? That's interesting, I said. Because she hasn't lived here for over a month. Silence. Then the counselor asked, would you be okay with him speaking to her school therapist? Just to make sure everything's okay. Of course, I said. In fact, can I sit in on the first one? She paused. You'd be willing to? Absolutely. The session was revealing, not about me, but about her. He wasn't traumatized. He wasn't confused. He was sharp. He told the therapist that mommy told him to say certain things. That she said it was okay to stretch the truth if he missed her. That daddy won't let me come over if you don't say it the right way. He said it all in front of her. Because I requested she be there too. She froze in that little chair, pretending to be shocked, trying to correct him mid-sentence. But the therapist saw it. She saw all of it. After the session, the school documented it. Flagged her for manipulation. Didn't ban her, but noted it in the school's internal report. She was officially on thin ice. Not because of me. Because of her own son's words. And I played it cool the entire time. No drama. No counters. I just quietly forwarded the report's summary to her own mother. No comment. No extra sentence. Just the truth. 10 minutes later, her mother called her, and I could hear it through the thin apartment walls across the street. She'd parked herself temporarily in the complex next to ours, trying to stay close. That night, she screamed at her phone in the parking lot, slammed the door to her car, threw a paper coffee cup at her own windshield, and I stood behind the curtain, sipping tea. She tried one last act of sabotage the next week, fake CPS call. Anonymous report. Father leaves child home alone for hours. Possibly emotionally abusive. 2 agents showed up. I welcomed them in. Showed them every room. Offered coffee. Showed them his fully stocked room, the fresh groceries, the structured schedule, the binder of school activities I managed. They left within 15 minutes. The male officer actually said, "You're the calmest dad I've ever interviewed." I smiled. I've had practice cleaning up someone else's mess. She'd fired her last shot. And missed. Badly. Now her family doubted her. The school didn't trust her. CPS had cleared me. And her son? He didn't even ask about her anymore. Because now he saw through her act, too. I waited for the perfect moment to strike. Not in public. Not online. But intimately. Quietly. Because see, a woman like her only fears one thing more than being exposed. Being seen by the people she used to fool. And that's exactly what I was going to make happen. I invited her mother, father, and sister over for dinner. Just them. No crowd. No drama. I told them it was about our son. That I wanted to talk, face to face, about where things really stood, about custody, parenting roles, long-term planning. They agreed. No hesitation. She wasn't invited. But I knew she'd show up anyway, because I made sure her sister let it slip in their group chat. "We're going over to my house for dinner." He said, "It's about the kid. You coming?" She replied. WTF? He didn't tell me. Typical. I'll be there. Perfect. I didn't prepare anything fancy. Just homemade food, real plates, open seating. I let them get comfortable, greeted them warmly, offered wine, played soft music. Our son was already asleep upstairs. Then I walked into the living room, closed the door behind me, and laid out a single manila folder on the coffee table. They looked at it, then at me. "Before we start," I said, "you should see what's inside." Her mom opened it first. Inside, printouts, screenshots, transcripts of her messages, some about me, some about the affairs, and most devastatingly, messages she sent to their son. Manipulative ones. "If you don't say this, Daddy won't let you see me again. Say you're scared. It'll help Mommy. Tell the teacher Daddy yells at you when I'm not there." Their faces changed. Her dad clenched his jaw, so tight I thought his molars might snap. Her mom whispered, "Oh my God, she said this to him?" I nodded. Then her sister pulled out the final page. A photo. The one from the school therapist session, her frozen, stunned, caught mid-lie as our son laid it all bare. I didn't say a word. I just let them sit in it. 15 minutes later, like clockwork, the front door opened. She walked in wearing makeup, heels, perfume, like she thought she was crashing a party. "Nice of you to tell me you were having a family meeting without me," she said loudly, hands on hips. No one answered. She stepped into the living room and saw them, seated, quiet, still holding the papers. "What the hell is this?" she snapped. Her sister stood up first. Calm, unshaken. This is who you've become." Her mother's voice was next, shaking, but not weak. "I defended you. I told people they didn't understand. But this isn't a misunderstanding. This is evil." Her father didn't say anything. He just stood up, walked past her, didn't even look at her. That silence? It broke her. She tried to pivot, hard. "Oh, he showed you this? He's manipulating you, too. He's been twisting everything, making me look like a monster." "No," her sister cut in, voice sharp as glass. "You did that." Her mom held up one of the printed screenshots. "You used your son like a pawn. You weaponized our grandson for pity, for revenge, for your own damn ego." She turned to me then, desperation in her eyes. "This was your plan all along. You set me up." I smiled. Just slightly. "No. You walked into it. I just gave the people who loved you a front row seat." She tried to leave, stormed out without another word. But the damage was done. Her mother hugged me before she left, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for protecting him. From her." Her sister stayed back, pulled me aside. "If you ever need help, anything, I'm there." She doesn't speak for us. That night, I stood by the window as her car pulled away. Fast. Alone. And for the first time in this entire saga, I saw something I hadn't seen before. She wasn't angry. She was terrified. Because she wasn't just losing people anymore. She was losing her identity. It started with a flyer. Simple. Elegant. The school was holding its annual Spring Community Day games, food, performances. Open to parents, neighbors, and friends of the district. I was asked to help organize it after my speech on the Fathers in Action panel. I accepted. Not just because it meant something to the community, but because I knew who'd see the posters. She would. And I made sure of it. One went up on the bulletin board inside her apartment complex. Another handed to her by mistake at the local grocery store by a volunteer who had no idea who she was. A third posted by the coffee shop where she used to meet her affair partners. Each one an invitation she'd never receive, but couldn't ignore. I didn't prepare anything elaborate. I didn't plan a grand moment of confrontation. That wasn't the point anymore. The point was contrast. That's what hurts narcissists the most. To see the world move on. To see people happy without them. So on the day of the event, I dressed simple: polo, jeans, sneakers. My son wore the custom shirt he helped design for his class, all bright colors and glitter paint. And Nadia? She wore a soft blue sundress, minimal makeup, and that calm smile that made everyone relax when she was around. We arrived early, helped set up tables, ran cords for the speakers, took photos of the kids painting in the art corner. And then, she showed up. I saw her before she saw us. She wore sunglasses again, her new armor, and walked stiffly across the field, scanning for familiar faces. She didn't bring food, didn't volunteer. She was just there, trying to matter. But no one noticed. No one approached. Because every face she used to lean on was turned toward us now. Nadia talking to the PDA board. Me high-fiving my son after a beanbag toss win. Teachers hugging us. Dads clapping me on the back. At one point, a little girl tugged my son's hand and said, "I wish your dad was my dad." He turned, grinned, and said, "He's the best." And she was standing 5 feet away when she heard that. I caught her looking at us multiple times. Not with jealousy, with desperation. Like she was trying to find a crack, some angle where she still belonged. She didn't. She tried to hover near a table of parents. One of the moms, once her closest ally, stood up and physically shifted her seat to block her view of the kids' performance. She tried to ask a volunteer where the sign-up sheet was for next month's PDA Garden Day. The volunteer blinked and said, "Oh, I think it's full already." Sorry. It wasn't. But I was the one managing that list now. Then came the final scene. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Our son was asked to say a short thank you on the mic, something the kids prepared ahead of time in class. He walked up, a little nervous. Nadia gave him a thumbs up. And he said, "Thank you to my school, and my teachers, and my awesome dad, and my friend Nadia who helps make everything fun now." People clapped. Some Ed. He walked off smiling. And her? She stood frozen on the sidelines, arms limp at her sides, jaw slightly open. Her own son had just publicly replaced her. And she couldn't even scream. She just backed away, like a ghost afraid of sunlight. She didn't stay much longer. Left before cleanup. Didn't say goodbye to anyone. Didn't even stop to look at the mural the kids made, which, by the way, included a drawing of me, our son, and Nadia holding hands under a blue sky. No mention of her. Not even in crayon. That night, I uploaded a photo from the event. Just one. Our son with pain on his nose. Me holding his shoulder. Nadia smiling beside him, hand resting gently on his back. Caption: Spring's about new beginnings. And some beginnings are worth everything. Within an hour, a dozen people shared it. Comments poured in. Best family I've ever seen. He looks so happy. You're doing everything right. You deserve every good thing coming your way. And her? She posted a blurry black and white selfie an hour later. Caption: Lonely doesn't mean alone. But it sure feels like it sometimes. Not a single like. It took 2 weeks after the Spring Community Day for her to finally crack. Not publicly. Not dramatically. But in the form of a quiet, late-night text. 1:12 a.m. I miss him. I know I don't deserve to, but I do. 10 minutes later, another. I know I ******* up. I don't expect forgiveness. I want to talk. Please. I stared at the screen for a long time. She hadn't messaged in over a month. Not since her family cut her off. Not since the school made her presence invisible. Not since her own son stopped asking about her completely. And now, here she was, trying to squeeze one last drop of attention out of a corpse she created. I didn't respond. Not immediately. I waited. 3 days. Nothing from me. But she kept sending more. I've started therapy. I'm serious about getting better. He used to laugh with me. I remember that. I just want to feel that again. Tell him I said I love him. Please. I never told him. Not because I was being cruel, but because I wouldn't poison him with hope that had already rotted. A week later, I saw her outside the school. Not on school grounds, she knew better. But across the street, parked in her car, just watching the kids during drop-off. She had her window cracked. Sunglasses on again. Still pretending she wasn't unraveling. She saw us. Me, our son, and Nadia. Our son was laughing about something. Nadia handed him a banana and ruffled his hair before he ran off. He didn't even glance at the car across the street. She watched that. Sat there. Didn't move. Didn't wave. She just watched. And I made sure she knew I saw her. But I didn't nod. Didn't wave. Didn't acknowledge her existence. Because when someone's dead to you, even a glance is CPR. The next attempt came through her sister. A call. I picked up, because I respected her. She's not well, she said. She's saying she might leave the state. Says she has nothing left here. I'm not defending her, you know that. But, is there anything she can do to earn her way back? I said nothing for a second. Then I asked, what would you do if someone used your kid as a shield to protect their lies? Lied to your face. Lied to your parents. Slept with 2 men while wearing your last name, and blamed you for it when the walls caved in. Her sister went quiet. I wouldn't let her back in either, she finally said. I appreciated her honesty. So I told her the truth. She's already been forgiven. What do you mean? I forgave her the moment I realized she was never worth the fight. Forgiveness isn't about second chances. It's about freedom. And I'm free now. So's our son. The final message came a week later. One sentence. I hope one day he'll want to know me again. She didn't even use his name. That told me everything. Still performing. Still hoping for sympathy. Still making it about her. I never responded. And I never will. Now? It's been a year. Nadia and I moved into a better house, closer to a school with a great art program. Our son thrives. His walls are covered in drawings. His backpack has a photo of the 3 of us tucked inside. He asked me to print 2 copies, one for him, one for Nadia's desk. We still have quiet nights. Still do movie Fridays. But there's no tension anymore. No whispered lies. No shadows on the wall. Just peace. And once in a while, I still see her, a mention from someone who used to know her, or a blurry post on a forgotten account. But that's all she is now. A used to be. No final showdown. No dramatic closure. Just silence. Because that's what happens when you dig your own grave, expecting someone else to fall in it. You're the only one left in the dirt. And me? I'm walking away clean. With my son's hand in mine. And a woman beside me who didn't need to lie to be loved. The story of Mommy thought is over. And trust me, I won.